The sun dipped low over the endless plains, painting the sky in fiery shades of orange and crimson. In that golden haze, a lone figure appeared on horseback, his long black hair whipping in the wind, muscles taut and shining beneath the fading sunlight. Tribal jewelry jingled softly around his neck, small tattoos tracing the curve of his biceps. This was Kalen, a fierce Native American warrior known across the territories for his bravery, strength, and the mysterious air that followed him everywhere. But today his eyes were fixed on a small, distant farmhouse, and something heavier than any battle rested in his chest. Inside that farmhouse, a young woman named Alara paced nervously. Her hands rested protectively over the gentle swell of her belly. Alara's dress was simple, woven with patterns passed down from her ancestors, a small token of the land and culture she could never leave behind. Her heart pounded with a mixture of fear and anticipation. She'd been thrust into a world she did not choose, married against her will, but now, with a baby on the way, her reality had grown even more complicated. Welcome back to Western Love Story, where we dive deep into tales of passion, courage, and the kind of love that grows against all odds. Before we continue, don't forget to like and subscribe to join our journey through stories that will make your heart race. Alara had never imagined her life would take such a turn. The landowner's insistence had been absolute. She was to marry Kalen, the warrior who inspired both fear and awe across the plains. At first, she had resisted, trembling at the thought of living with a man she barely knew. She had heard the whispers in the village, the stories of Kellen's strength, his unmatched skill in hunting and combat, the way his bare chest gleamed like polished bronze in the sunlight. But whispers could not compare to reality. When Kalen finally arrived at her doorstep, she felt something stirred deep inside her that she could neither name nor ignore. Kalen dismounted silently, his eyes scanning the house before finally resting on Alara. He was imposing, every movement deliberate and controlled, yet there was a gentleness that no one could see at first glance. His small tribal tattoos seemed to tell a story of battles fought, victories earned, and losses endured, a silent testament to the life he carried with him. Alara swallowed hard, realizing this was the man she would have to share her life with, whether she wanted to or not. The first moments between them were tense. Kellen's gaze was unwavering, strong and piercing, as if he could read her thoughts. Alara felt both intimidated and strangely drawn to him. He spoke little, but when he did, his voice was deep, steady, and commanding, yet laced with a softness that seemed almost impossible for a warrior so fierce. The tension in the room was electric, the kind that could spark a fire with the slightest touch. As they stood in the dim glow of the evening, Kalen finally broke the silence. "I know this marriage was not your choice," he said, his eyes locking with hers, "but we will find a way to live with honor and maybe more than that." Alara felt a shiver run through her body. The words were unexpected, almost too gentle for the hardened warrior before her. And yet in them, she sensed a promise, a chance that the life forced upon her might hold something she had never dared to dream of. Outside, the wind rustled through the prairie grass, carrying with it the faint sound of distant drums. Kellen's tribe was near, their presence a constant reminder of the world he came from, and the culture he would not abandon. Alara glanced down at her belly, the life growing inside her a new layer of both hope and fear. Would Kalen embrace this child as his own? Could love really grow from a marriage that had begun under obligation rather than desire? Western Love Story is all about these moments, the twists of fate that turned fear into courage, strangers into family, and duty into passion. As Alara and Kalen navigated the first awkward days of their forced union, the house seemed smaller than ever. The walls that once offered comfort now felt like barriers, keeping them apart from the possibility of trust and intimacy. Yet every glance, every small gesture, hinted at a connection neither of them could ignore. Kalen proved to be unlike anyone Alara had expected. Despite his imposing physique, broad shoulders, chiseled chest, and the strength that could fell a man in seconds, he showed patience. He respected her boundaries, listening to her fears and comforting her with a quiet presence that demanded nothing in return. Each day, he became more than the warrior everyone feared. He became a man who could be gentle, protective, and endlessly patient. Alara's heart, once guarded and wary, began to soften. She noticed the little things, the way Kellen's hand lingered near hers when he thought she wasn't looking, The way he hummed softly while tending to the hearth, the way his eyes held a spark of humor even in silence. She started to wonder if what others called duty could actually become something richer, something alive. But the path was not easy. Lara's family watched closely, wary of the union and unsure if trust could ever exist between a forced bride and a warrior whose world was so different from hers. Kellen's tribe, too, had its doubts. Whispers of scandal and impropriety followed their every move, and the tension between communities grew with every passing day. And in the midst of it all, a baby was on the way. A new life that promised joy but also demanded courage neither Alara nor Kalen had fully measured. The nights were the hardest. Alone in their shared home, the silence was almost deafening. Alara often lay awake, feeling the baby kick, imagining a future where love could exist alongside duty, where passion could grow from respect, and where a family could be forged not by choice but by courage and heart. Kalen would sometimes join her, sitting silently beside the bed, his hand resting gently on her stomach. Neither spoke, but the understanding between them deepened with every heartbeat, every breath, every moment of shared solitude. And then one evening, everything changed. A letter arrived, its contents secret and urgent, that threatened to shatter the fragile trust they were building. Lara's eyes widened as she read, her heart racing with fear and anticipation. Kalen saw the change in her expression and immediately took her hand, his grip firm and reassuring. "Whatever this is," he said, "we face it together." The tension hung thick in the air, unspoken, yet undeniable. Could a forced marriage survive the shadow of betrayal? Could love truly blossom with a child on the way? Or would outside forces destroy what little had begun to grow? As Alara looked into Kellen's eyes, she felt a mixture of fear and hope, knowing that the days ahead would test them in ways they could not yet imagine. Stay tuned on Western Love Story, because this journey has only just begun. Alara and Kellen's story is one of courage, passion, and the kind of love that doesn't follow rules, it makes its own path. Will they find trust in each other? Can a forced union truly turn into something extraordinary? The answers lie just beyond the horizon, where danger, desire, and destiny collide. The days following the arrival of the letter passed in tense silence. Kalen moved through the farmhouse with his usual precision, muscles rippling under the sunlit skin, his small tribal tattoos catching the light. His long black hair fell around his shoulders, and the tribal jewelry around his neck clinked softly with each step. Even in quiet moments, his presence commanded attention. Alara watched him from the corner of her eye, her heart still uncertain, yet drawn to the strength and steadiness he offered. Her own hands rested over her belly, tracing the gentle curves that now defined her more than ever. Alara's thoughts drifted back to the first days of their marriage. At first, she had felt trapped, a captive to fate she had not chosen. Her native dress, hand-woven and adorned with small, traditional beads, felt like both armor and a connection to the family she had left behind. She remembered the cold fear that had gripped her the moment Kalen had stepped through the doorway, his imposing figure silhouetted against the fading light. But over time, the fear had begun to shift into something else: curiosity, fascination, and the faintest whisper of trust. Kellen's past was as layered as the plains themselves. Born to a proud tribe that had long defended their land, he carried the weight of generations in every step. His father had been a warrior like him, his mother a healer, and Kalen had inherited both the strength of the battlefield and the patience of one who tended the sick and wounded. His small tribal tattoos marked victories, losses, and sacred moments, stories that few could read but all could feel in the intensity of his gaze. Alara could sense the complexity beneath the surface. Every time Kalen moved, there was purpose. Every time he spoke, there was history. And yet, for all his ferocity, he treated her with an unexpected gentleness. The house, once suffocating, began to feel like a fragile sanctuary, a place where they could slowly navigate this forced union and perhaps discover the possibility of something more. The letter, however, was a shadow over the fragile beginnings of trust. Kalen had received it without comment, but Alara had seen the subtle tension in his jaw, the tightness in his hands as he read it in the solitude of the main room. She had no idea what secrets it contained, only that it held danger, maybe even betrayal. And the uncertainty made her stomach tighten in ways the baby could not fully explain. Kalen finally broke the silence one evening as the sun sank behind distant hills. His voice was calm but carried an edge of caution. "The letter is from the landowner," he said, his deep tone vibrating through the quiet house. "There are things you do not know, Alara, things that may threaten not just us, but the baby." He paused, letting the words settle. His large hands rested gently on hers, the contrast of strength and care striking her anew. What does it mean?" Laura asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Her eyes searched his, desperate for reassurance but also bracing for fear. Kellen's gaze softened. "It means we must be careful," he said. "It means we must trust each other more than anyone else." Alara's pulse quickened, both from fear and from the closeness of him. The warmth radiating from his muscular frame, the way his tribal jewelry brushed against her arm as he leaned near, the small tattoos along his biceps, all of it was mesmerizing. She felt herself drawn into a connection that went beyond obligation, beyond duty, yet the unknown hung over them like a storm cloud. Days turned into nights filled with whispered conversations and stolen glances. Lara began to see the human beneath the warrior's imposing exterior. Kalen taught her small lessons: how to read the wind, how to track the subtle shifts in the prairie, how to care for the baby growing inside her even before its birth. His shirtless form, muscular and lithe, seemed almost sculpted by the land itself, and every movement carried a careful balance of power and grace. Alara, in turn, shared pieces of her own world. She told him stories her grandmother had passed down, songs that her people had sung to the children before sleep, and rituals meant to honor the land. Her native dress, simple yet adorned with intricate patterns and beads, became a symbol of her resilience and connection. Kalen listened, not just politely, but with real attention, absorbing the knowledge and holding it as if it were sacred. Yet the outside world pressed in relentlessly. The landowner who had forced their marriage still watched from afar, sending emissaries and whispers that carried threats and rumors. Kellen's tribe, while loyal, had its own code and expectations. Every action he took was scrutinized. And Alara's family, torn between relief that she was safe and fear for the life she now led, waited for any sign that this union might fail. One evening, a stranger arrived at the edge of their property. Cloaked in shadows, the figure carried a message that made Alara's breath catch. Kalen stepped forward, his muscular frame tense, his long black hair falling around his shoulders as he prepared for confrontation. The stranger handed a sealed note and left without a word. Kalen opened it carefully, his small tribal tattoos flexing as he moved. Alara could only catch fragments of the words, phrases that hinted at betrayal, danger, and secrets long buried. Kellen's jaw tightened, but he did not speak immediately. Instead, he turned to Alara, his dark eyes intense. "This changes things," he said softly. "We are not alone in this, and there are those who would see us fail. But if we stand together, nothing can break us." Alara swallowed hard, feeling both dread and determination. She reached for his hand, the contrast between her small fingers and his strong, calloused ones grounding her. "I will stand with you," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. Kalen nodded, a rare smile flickering across his face. It was fleeting, but it carried hope, a promise that perhaps love could grow even in the shadow of danger. The baby kicked gently, almost as if in response to the silent vow they had shared. In that moment, Alara felt a surge of courage she had not known she possessed. The nights remained restless, filled with dreams of shadowy figures and whispers of betrayal. Yet even in the darkness, Kellen's presence was a constant source of strength, protection, and an unspoken invitation to trust. Alara found herself watching him as he trained at dawn, his shirtless body glistening with sweat, tribal jewelry jingling with every movement. The fit, model-like muscles rippled under the early sunlight. The small tattoos along his arms seemed to tell a story she longed to understand. She realized, slowly and with a mix of fear and wonder, that she was no longer simply the bride forced into a union. She was becoming a partner in a life that demanded courage, patience, and love that neither of them could yet fully define. And Kalen, fierce and strong as he was becoming more than a warrior. He was a protector, a guide, and perhaps, in time, something far closer to her heart, than she had ever imagined. The prairie stretched endlessly outside their windows, a symbol of both freedom and isolation. Alara's mind often wandered to the future, what the baby would look like, what kind of life they could build, and whether the love growing between her and Kalen could survive the trials ahead. Every moment carried suspense, every glance held promise, and every whispered word hinted at mysteries still unfolding. Then came a day when the tension could no longer be contained. A messenger from the landowner arrived with urgent news. A rival faction had moved against Kellen's tribe, threatening not only their safety but also the fragile peace that had allowed him to be here with Lara. Kellen's muscles tensed, the small tribal tattoos on his arms seeming to shift with his anger and determination. He moved with calculated speed, his long black hair streaming behind him, tribal jewelry clinking with each precise step. Alara's heart pounded in response, a mix of fear for the danger and a strange excitement at the courage he displayed. She realized in that moment that their lives were now irreversibly intertwined. The baby she carried was a living testament to their union, and their love, forced at first, was slowly transforming into something powerful, unbreakable, and necessary. Kalen turned to her, his dark eyes softening just for a moment. "Whatever comes," he said, "we face it together. No one can take this from us." Alara nodded, gripping his hand with a determination that matched his own. The tension in the air was palpable, the suspense almost unbearable, but the bond they were forming was undeniable. As the sun dipped behind the horizon once again, casting long shadows over the prairie, Alara and Kalen stood side by side, ready for the unknown. Their story was only beginning, full of danger, passion, and the promise of a love neither had expected, but both were learning to trust. And as the night fell over the endless plains, one truth became clear: nothing in their world would ever be the same again. Western love story is where their journey continues, exploring the fierce passion, hidden mysteries, and the slow-burning love of a forced marriage that has already begun to bloom against all odds. Alara and Kellen's path is riddled with challenges, suspense, and secrets, and the next steps will test every part of them. The baby on the way is more than a blessing. It is a catalyst that will reveal true courage, ignite unexpected love, and force them to confront dangers neither could face alone. The wind howled across the prairie that night, carrying whispers of danger that Alara could almost feel pressing against her skin. She sat near the fire in the farmhouse, her native dress catching the flickering light, beads glinting as she rocked gently, feeling the baby stir. Every movement was a reminder that her life had changed irreversibly. Outside, Kalen patrolled the edge of the property, his shirtless form glistening under the moonlight. Muscles taut, the tribal jewelry around his neck clinking softly with each step. His small tribal tattoos seemed to catch the shadows, telling stories of battles fought and victories earned. Alara's mind raced. The letter had revealed threats from rivals aligned against Kellen's tribe, and though he had hidden his full worry, she could sense the storm approaching. Her fear was layered with something else's curiosity, a desire to understand the man who had become both her protector and the father of her child. Kellen's presence was overwhelming, not just in strength, but in the calm determination he radiated. Inside, Alara's younger brother, Tarek, had arrived from the neighboring settlement. His arrival was both a comfort and a source of tension. Tarek's eyes were wary as he looked at Kalen, clearly sizing him up. "Are you sure he can be trusted?" Tarek asked, his voice low. The landowner didn't force this marriage for nothing. Kalen didn't flinch. His gaze remained steady, dark eyes meeting Tarek's with unwavering confidence. "I have lived by honor my whole life," he said, his voice deep and calm, yet carrying a weight that silenced doubt. "I will protect Alara and this child. That is my vow." Tarek studied him for a long moment, the tension in the room thick. Finally he nodded, though reluctantly. "I hope your honor is stronger than the dangers coming," he muttered, leaving the room with his eyes still on Kalen. Alara exhaled, feeling both relief and unease. Even family loyalty could not erase the fear she carried for what lay ahead. As night deepened, Kalen returned to the hearth. His long black hair fell across his shoulders, small tattoos flexing as he knelt beside Alara. "The threats are more dangerous than I first thought," he admitted quietly, his dark eyes holding both caution and determination. "The rival faction has allies we cannot see, and they will not hesitate to strike." Alara felt the weight of the situation settle on her shoulders, yet there was something in Kellen's presence that made her braver. She reached for his hand, feeling the powerful grip of his calloused fingers. "Then we face them together," she whispered. Kellen nodded, and for a moment the world outside seemed to pause. The prairie was vast, the night silent, yet the tension in their hearts made every shadow feel like a threat. The following morning, Kellen led Alara outside, showing her how to observe the subtle signs of approaching danger. His shirtless form glistened with sweat under the rising sun, the tribal jewelry on his chest moving with each careful step. His muscles flexed as he demonstrated tracking techniques, and Alara couldn't help but notice how every motion carried strength and precision. She mirrored him as best as she could, the native dress she wore restricting her movements, but symbolizing both her heritage and her resilience. Their training was interrupted by the arrival of Selena, a woman from Kellen's tribe who had come to assist. Selena was fierce, adorned in tribal patterns that marked her lineage, her hair braided and decorated with feathers. She had watched Kellen from a distance for years, respecting his strength and skill. And now she was here to ensure the safety of the woman who had become part of his life. "Kellen," Selena said, her voice strong but warm, "you cannot do this alone. Alara must learn the ways of the land if she is to survive what is coming." Alara nodded, feeling both apprehensive and grateful. Kellen's guidance was invaluable, but Selena's presence brought another layer of understanding. The training was intense, yet every lesson brought them closer together, forging a bond through shared effort and trust. But even as they trained, the shadow of the landowner and rival factions lingered. Alara noticed villagers whispering, watching her and Kellen with suspicion. Some were curious, others fearful. Rumors of betrayal, power struggles, and danger spread like wildfire, adding pressure to an already tense situation. Alara's heart ached for the simplicity of the life she had lost, yet she knew there was no turning back. Kellen took it upon himself to strengthen their defenses. He patrolled the perimeter daily, his muscular frame moving with fluidity and purpose, small tribal tattoos visible under the sun. He taught Alara how to read the wind, how to spot unusual tracks, and how to anticipate attacks before they came. Her native dress, while traditional, became practical in ways she had not imagined, allowing movement while preserving her connection to her roots. One evening, while Kellen scouted the outer fields, Alara noticed movement near the tree line. Shadows shifted, and a chill ran down her spine. The baby kicked sharply, and she felt the immediate urgency to alert Kellen. She rushed outside, her dress flowing behind her as she called his name. Kellen turned sharply, his long black hair falling across his shoulders, tribal jewelry jingling softly, muscles taut. The tension in the air was electric. A lone figure emerged from the shadows carrying a package wrapped in leather. Stranger stopped a few yards away, hands raised in peace. Kellen approached slowly, every movement measured, ready for conflict. The figure dropped the package and retreated into the darkness without a word. Kellen opened the package carefully. Inside was another letter, its contents more cryptic than the last, hinting at secrets within the landowner's household secrets that could change everything. Alara read over his shoulder, her pulse racing. "Why would anyone want us to fail?" she asked, fear and confusion mingling in her voice. Kellen's dark eyes hardened. "Because we are a threat," he said. "And some threats are more dangerous than any army. We must uncover the truth before it is too late." As the days passed, the tension built. Alara could sense the village watching, the whispers growing louder. Kellen became more distant in his focus, yet every glance he gave her was full of silent reassurance. Their child's presence was both a source of hope and vulnerability. Every shadow, every sudden noise, sent their hearts racing. Subplots began to emerge. Tarek Alara's brother started to investigate the landowner's intentions in secret, seeking allies in neighboring settlements. Selena revealed hidden customs and teachings from Kellen's tribe, traditions meant to strengthen their unity and prepare them for unforeseen challenges. And the baby, moving constantly within Alara, became a symbol of the future. They were building a future that could be stolen if they faltered. Alara's thoughts often returned to the moment she first saw Kellen. Shirtless under the fading sunlight, tribal jewelry glinting, muscles rippling, tattoos telling stories she longed to understand. She realized that her fear was slowly transforming into something else, a cautious admiration, a desire to trust, and perhaps even a deep, unspoken affection. She could see in Kellen's eyes the same flicker, though hidden behind layers of duty and caution. The threat from the rival faction became imminent when a scout reported unusual movements near the southern ridge. Kalen and Selena devised a plan to secure the area, while Alara remained in the farmhouse, the baby pressing gently against her, as if aware of the danger approaching. The tension was suffocating. Every sound, every shadow outside the window seemed amplified. In the quiet moments, Kalen would return to her side, running his strong hands along her arms, small tribal tattoos flexing as he moved. His presence was both calming and electrifying, a reminder that amidst chaos, they were not alone. Alara clung to those moments, drawing strength from his muscular form, from the stability he provided, and from the faint warmth of love that had begun to bloom despite the forced beginnings of their union. One night, as a storm rolled across the prairie, Kalen shared a secret from his past, spoke of a betrayal within his tribe years ago, a lesson in trust and resilience. Alara listened, her heart tightening with each word. She understood that the dangers surrounding them were not just physical, they were tied to loyalty, deception, and the fragile threads of trust. The storm outside mirrored the tension inside the farmhouse. Lightning illuminated the room in fleeting flashes, revealing Kellen's muscular frame, long black hair clinging to his shoulders, tribal jewelry glinting, and small tattoos moving with each tense shift. Alara's native dress clung to her, beads catching the light as she realized that their lives were now fully intertwined, not just by the baby, not just by the forced marriage, but by the challenges they would face together. And then, as the storm reached its peak, a loud knock echoed at the door. Kellen's body tensed, every muscle rippling under his skin, long black hair falling forward, tribal jewelry clinking. Alara clutched her belly, fear and anticipation coursing through her. Outside the door stood a figure whose intentions were impossible to read, bringing news that would push them further into danger, yet also closer together. The night ended in uncertainty. The rival faction, the landowner's secrets, and the unborn child all were threads in a story still unraveling. Alara and Kalen held each other close, their hearts pounding, knowing that the days ahead would test their courage, their trust, and the fragile beginnings of love. Western Love Story continues here, where every heartbeat counts, every shadow holds a secret, and the line between danger and destiny blurs. The journey of Alara and Kalen is far from over, and the choices they make now will determine whether love can truly survive against all odds. The wind had shifted across the prairie, carrying a hint of smoke and the metallic tang of danger. Alara's heart pounded as she stood near the window of the farmhouse, her native dress flowing with the breeze, beads shimmering in the faint light. The baby inside her kicked sharply, as if sensing the unrest that had begun to coil around them. Kalen was already outside, shirtless and alert, his muscular frame gleaming under the dim moonlight. Long black hair falling across his shoulders, tribal jewelry clinking softly, and small tattoos flexing as his muscles tensed. Every movement he made radiated strength, control, and a silent warning that nothing could catch him unprepared. Alara turned as Selena entered, her braided hair decorated with feathers, eyes narrowed with concern. "They're coming," she said quietly. "The rival faction. They've crossed the river and are moving fast. Kellen's tribe isn't expecting them so soon." Kellen's dark eyes met Alara's as he approached, every inch of his fit, model-like build coiled like a spring, ready to defend. "We have no choice," he said. "We hold the house. We protect this family." His hands rested gently on her shoulders, the warmth and strength of him grounding her even as the tension clawed at her chest. Alara nodded, gripping the edge of the table. Her native dress, woven with intricate patterns and beads, felt heavier somehow, as if the weight of her unborn child, the legacy of her family, and the rising danger had become one. She glanced toward Tarek, who was helping board up windows, his eyes fierce with determination. "I won't let them hurt us," he said, voice tight. "Not you. Not the baby." The first sounds of chaos reached them just before dawn, distant clatter of hooves, shouts, and the unmistakable crackle of fire along the outer fields. Kalen moved with lightning precision, every step deliberate, muscles flexing under taut skin. Long black hair swinging as he ran, tribal jewelry and tattoos marking him as a living force of the land. He had trained Alara in small ways how to listen for danger, how to move without being seen, but nothing could prepare her for the raw reality outside. "Stay low," Kaelin commanded, crouching beside her. Alara pressed herself against the wall, her native dress brushing against her skin, beads catching the faint light as she tried to steady her trembling hands. She could see shadows moving through the trees, shapes approaching with malice and intent. Her pulse raced, the baby kicking more urgently with each passing moment. The farmhouse shook as the first wave of the rival faction reached the property line. Kaelin stepped into the open briefly, muscles taut, tattoos and tribal jewelry gleaming, and with a roar that seemed to shake the very air, he confronted them. The sound was primal, commanding, and the attackers faltered, eyes widening at the sight of the shirtless warrior whose presence seemed to radiate power itself. Alara watched, breathless, as Kaelin moved with precision, deflecting attacks and sending challengers sprawling with strength that seemed almost unreal. His long black hair clung to his shoulders in sweat, small tattoos shifting with his movements, every flex of muscle telling a story of training, honor, and survival. And yet, even in the chaos, he made sure to glance at her, ensuring she was safe, ensuring she felt protected in a way words could never express. Inside, Alara took action herself. Guided by the lessons Kaelin had taught her, she moved quietly from room to room, gathering supplies, bolstering doors, and preparing for what she feared was only the first wave. Selena moved alongside her, offering encouragement and guidance. "The baby is strong," Selena said softly, "and so is your heart. You have to trust both." Alara nodded, trying to push fear aside. The baby's movement was a reminder that she was not alone, that Kaelin and she had more to fight for than just survival. Every moment of fear was paired with a growing understanding of love, of duty, and of the strength that could emerge even in the most impossible circumstances. Outside, the battle intensified. Kellen's tribe arrived just in time, their own warriors emerging from the tree line, the clash of forces echoing across the prairie. Callan fought at the forefront, his muscular frame moving like a storm of strength and skill. Long black hair whipping around him, tattoos glinting with each motion, tribal jewelry rattling with his movements. Alara's heart swelled at the sight her husband by marriage, her protector, and now a force of life she could scarcely comprehend. Tarek and Selena worked together to fortify the farmhouse, blocking entry points and helping guide villagers to safety. The sounds of battle shouts, the clash of weapons, and the occasional cry of pain filled the air, creating a tension that made Alara's chest ache. She pressed her hands to her belly, whispering softly, promising protection to the baby inside, willing herself to stay calm, even as chaos raged around her. Through the noise, Kellen's voice called to her. "Alara, stay inside. Protect the child." Words were commanding, but edged with something warmer, something that transcended fear and authority. Lara obeyed, but her eyes never left him. Seeing every movement, every strike, every effort to shield her, and the life growing within her. Hours passed in a blur of movement and tension. The prairie around the farmhouse had become a battlefield. Fires flickering along the horizon, and the sky painted in streaks of smoke and dawn light. Lara felt her strength waning, yet the determination within her only grew. She could not falter. Kaelin, shirtless and relentless, fought like a force of nature, every muscle flexing, long black hair wild in the wind, tribal jewelry clinking, tattoos alive with motion. The attackers began to retreat, daunted by the combined force of Kaelin and his tribe, but the danger was far from over. Suddenly, a sharp cry echoed from the barn. Alara's heart leaped. "Kaelin!" she shouted, fear twisting her voice. He turned instantly, muscles coiled like springs, long black hair flaring around his shoulders. With a surge of strength, he sprinted toward the sound, leaving the battlefield momentarily to protect what mattered most. Alara followed cautiously, Selena at her side. Inside the barn, they found a group of intruders attempting to set fire to stored supplies. Kaelin moved like a blur, his shirtless form blocking the flames and assailants, small tattoos flexing, tribal jewelry glinting. Alara, heart pounding, helped smother the sparks with blankets, working with the same intensity he displayed. Every second was a test of courage. Every action, a battle between survival and fear. The fight continued for hours, the tension unrelenting. Lara's dress clung to her with sweat and exertion, beads catching light and flashes of movement as she realized the depth of her own strength and resolve. Kaylin, ever the warrior, remained at the forefront. Muscles taut, tattoos alive with every strike, long black hair plastered by sweat. Tribal jewelry marking him as both protector and symbol of life in the chaos. As the sun rose higher, the rival faction began to falter. Kellen's tribe held strong, and the farmhouse and its occupants were largely intact. But the air was thick with exhaustion, fear, and the knowledge that the danger had not fully passed. Alara felt the baby kick strongly, almost as if responding to the protective presence of Kaylin. The moment was brief but powerful, a quiet connection amidst the storm, a reminder of why they fought and what they had to protect. Selena approached, eyes scanning the horizon. "It's not over," she warned. "They will return. But for now, you have survived." Alara nodded, gripping Kellen's arm as he returned, muscles still tense. Tattoos visible under the morning sun, tribal jewelry clinking softly with each step. His dark eyes met hers, and for the first time, words were unnecessary.
Ow.
The bond formed in fear, danger, and shared determination was undeniable. Alara pressed her hand to his chest, feeling the heartbeat beneath his muscles. The warmth beneath his tattoos, the solidity beneath the tribal jewelry. "We survived," she whispered. Kellen's lips brushed her forehead briefly, a promise that the fight was not just for survival, but for the love slowly growing between them. For the family they were becoming, and for the life that would soon join them. Even as they stood there, catching their breath, the horizon remained tense. Shadows still lingered in the distance. The rival faction could regroup, and the landowner's secrets had yet to be fully revealed. Alara knew that the climax was near, that choices yet to be made would test their courage, love, and resilience like never before.
Yes.
And yet in that moment, she also knew that the connection between her and Callan's shirtless, muscular form, long black hair, tattoos and tribal jewelry, and her native dress reflecting strength and heritage, was the force that would carry them through whatever came next. Western love story continues here, with the storm yet to fully break. But with the promise of courage, passion, and the beginnings of a love that neither Alara nor Kaylin had expected but could no longer deny. The climax is approaching, danger is closing in, and every heartbeat counts as they prepare to face the ultimate test together. The sun rose over the prairie in a golden blaze, casting warmth across the farmhouse that had become both battlefield and sanctuary. Alara stood near the doorway, her native dress flowing softly around her, beads catching the morning light. The baby inside her moved gently. A calm reminder that the storm they had weathered was more than just survival. It was life, it was hope, it was love. Kaylin emerged from the yard, shirtless as always, muscles taut and gleaming under the sunlight. Long black hair falling across his broad shoulders, small tribal tattoos tracing the curve of his arms, tribal jewelry catching the light with every movement. His dark eyes met Alara's, and for the first time in weeks, a slow, quiet smile softened his strong features. The tension that had hung over them like a cloud began to lift, replaced by a calm certainty that they had endured the worst and had emerged stronger for it. Selena came forward, braided hair swaying with the breeze, her decorated feathers catching the light, a proud expression on her face. "The rival faction has retreated," she said. "They've lost too many, and Kellen's tribe has shown strength beyond what they expected. The landowner's influence is weakening. Your family is safe, and the child will be born into a world that respects the bond you've built." Alara exhaled slowly, relief washing over her. She reached out and took Kellen's hand, feeling the calloused warmth. The strength that had protected them through the nights of fear and battle. "We made it," she whispered. "We really made it." Kellen's lips brushed her forehead, his tribal jewelry clinking softly, muscles flexing as he leaned close. "We did," he said. "Together. Nothing could break us. Not the threats, not the lies, not the danger. Only together can we survive and thrive." Tarek stepped forward, his eyes scanning the horizon before resting on his sister and Kaylin. "I underestimated you, Kaylin," he admitted, voice tight but sincere. "You've proven honor and courage beyond what I imagined. I see now that Alara is in strong hands." Kaylin nodded, acknowledging Tarek's respect without arrogance. The trust that had been fragile, stretched across battles and threats, now felt solid. Alara felt it too, a bond of family, of loyalty, and of love that had grown slowly, born of survival and sacrifice. The farmhouse, once shadowed by danger and whispers of betrayal, now felt alive with quiet celebration. Alara moved carefully around the space, preparing a small meal. Our native dress, practical and flowing, adorned with beads and symbols of resilience. She had learned much from the nights of fear and the days of preparation, how to be strong, how to move with purpose, and how to nurture life even when chaos loomed. Kalen sat nearby, his muscular form relaxed but vigilant, long black hair catching the sunlight, tattoos alive with motion, even in stillness. He watched her, not with ownership or command, but with a protective and tender gaze, as if every glance reassured her that she was valued, loved, and safe. The distant hum of the village beginning to stir signaled normalcy returning, yet Alara knew that nothing would ever be entirely the same. Their lives had been forever altered, shaped by trials, danger, and the child growing within her. And yet, there was a new rhythm emerging, one defined by trust, courage, and the first glimmers of a love that had once been forced but was now freely chosen. Kalen stood, muscles shifting fluidly, small tattoos visible along his arms, tribal jewelry glinting. He moved toward Alara and rested a hand on her shoulder, grounding her in the moment. "We will build a home here," he said. "A family, not because it was forced, but because we choose it. We choose each other." Alara's heart swelled. The thought of choice, of freedom within love, felt powerful and right. "I choose you," she said softly, her hand resting over his, over her belly, feeling the baby stir again. "Choose us." Selena and Tarek exchanged smiles, both recognizing the significance of the moment. Battles had been fought, dangers survived, and now a future lay before them, uncharted but promising. The subplots that had woven through their lives, to Rick's concern, Selena's guidance, the landowner's interference, had all resolved in ways that reinforced trust, courage, and unity. Kalen leaned close, his lips brushing hers in a gentle promise. His long black hair fell across her shoulder, tattoos catching the light, muscles flexing, tribal jewelry moving softly with the motion. Lara felt herself melting into the strength and tenderness he radiated, realizing fully that the love they had begun to build in fear had matured into something profound and unwavering. The baby kicked again, stronger this time, and both Alara and Kalen laughed softly, a sound that felt like release after weeks of tension. "Our child will know courage," Kalen said, voice full of certainty, "and love that was earned, not given lightly." As the morning sun rose higher, Alara walked outside, Kalen following, his muscular frame a beacon of protection, long black hair flowing, tattoos alive in the sunlight, tribal jewelry glinting with each step. They looked across the prairie, the land stretching endlessly, symbol of freedom, resilience, and the life they were building together. Neighbors and villagers approached, cautious at first, then with smiles and respect. The survival of Alara and Kalen, the protection of the farmhouse, and the strength of Kellen's tribe had shifted perceptions. The landowner, witnessing the courage and honor displayed, began to ease his interference, acknowledging that some battles could not be won through fear or control. Alara turned to Kalen, her native dress flowing, beads catching sunlight, and felt a deep, abiding gratitude. She had survived fear, danger, and the uncertainty of a forced marriage, yet here she was, stronger, braver, and in love. Kellen's shirtless form, muscles flexed, tattoos visible, tribal jewelry moving softly, it's the embodiment of protection, strength, and a love that had grown from respect and trust. They spent the day preparing the house for the future, reinforcing walls, planting gardens, and making plans for the baby's arrival. Every task, mundane or vital, was imbued with meaning. The moments of shared work deepened their bond, and every glance, every touch, reaffirmed the love that had begun in fear but now bloomed freely. Tarek helped set up a safe space for the baby, his initial distrust replaced by admiration for Kalen and gratitude for the life and love forming within his sister's home. Selena remained close, her wisdom guiding them, her presence a reminder of the teachings, traditions, and strength that had carried Kalen and Alara through the storm. As night fell, the farmhouse glowed softly with firelight, casting long shadows and highlighting the symbols of resilience and heritage. In Lara's native dress and Kellen's tribal jewelry and tattoos, they sat together, hands intertwined, hearts beating in rhythm with the baby's movements. The tension that had dominated their lives was gone, replaced by calm, love, and anticipation of the future. Kalen rested his forehead against Alara's long black hair falling around them. Muscles relaxed after weeks of battle, tattoos visible in the glow, tribal jewelry moving softly. "We've faced everything together," he murmured. "The danger, the fears, the threats, and we've come through stronger. And now we have each other and our child." Alara nodded, tears of relief and joy shining in her eyes. "I never imagined love could grow from what we faced," she said softly. "But now I see that it can, that it does. And it's stronger than fear." The night passed with quiet laughter, gentle touches, and the shared understanding that their lives had been forever transformed. Alara's native dress reflected her heritage and strength. Alara's tribal jewelry, muscular form, and tattoos reflected courage, protection, and the fierce love he offered. They were partners, parents to be, and survivors, bound together not by force alone, but by trust, respect, and deep affection. Morning came with new light over the prairie, a symbol of hope and renewal. Alara and Kalen stepped outside together, looking toward the horizon. The farmhouse stood strong, the prairie stretched endlessly, and in their hearts was the certainty that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The baby kicked gently, a promise of new beginnings and the continuation of love and life. Western Love Story had chronicled their journey from a forced marriage filled with uncertainty to battles and danger, to the emergence of trust, courage, and love. Lessons were clear. Love can grow in unexpected ways. Courage is born from adversity, and family chosen, or born, is worth every risk. Alara rested her hand on her belly, looking at Kalen, whose long black hair shone in the sunlight, muscles relaxed but strong, tattoos and tribal jewelry catching the light. "We did it," she said. "We survived. We found love. Now we will protect this child." Kalen pulled her close, holding her gently against his muscular frame, at their hearts beating together, tattoos and beads glinting in the sun. "Yes," he whispered, "and nothing will ever break what we've built." For the first time in a long time, the farmhouse was silent, but filled with warmth, with hope, and with the promise of a future shaped by love, courage, and family. Alara and Kalen looked at each other, smiles soft but full of meaning, knowing that their story, once forced, now chosen, would continue, stronger than ever. And as the sun set over the prairie, their hearts beat as one, their futures shining bright, and their child's first movements a reminder that love, even born from fear, can grow into something extraordinary.